Hey there guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys with your host and friendly neighborhood far right thug, Mr. George Cresswell. Hope we're all doing well. Hope we're all having a fantastic day wherever we are. Recording this straight off the back of the last one that I recorded because there was some other things I wanted to get into whilst it was fresh in my mind. So, a lot of comments on Facebook that I've seen at the moment have been detailing Keir Starmer's historic backtrack on particularly the issue of immigration, where now the funniest thing is with regards to this, none of this issue has obviously been funny. The ethnic replacement, the great replacement that's occurred on every single nation on these isles is not, a laughing matter in any kind, okay? But it is funny to see how the guy who imprisoned, people for saying the very things that he's going to be saying in a moment, literally put people in prison for this kind of stuff, is now coming out and saying it due to it being more politically convenient and due to, for what can only really, at least in my opinion, be described as the Trump effect of the Trump presidency in the first 100 days or so, however long he's been in office now. It's not very long, but however long he's been in office, that all of this has seismically changed. So Keir Starmer, even since he's been in office, has had one of the worst immigration records, even versus Rishi Sunak, I forgot to pronounce his name for a minute, Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson, where he said that he's deported 24,000 people, but yet neglects to mention to you that he's let 30,000 odd in, so we have a net influx of 6,000 people. So again, trying to do everything possible to avoid going back on this issue to appease his globalist paymasters, but he's had to in some instances, and now even people on the very fringe left, like the Greens and Plaid as well, they dubbed this the Island of Strangers speech that he gave from Downing Street 1 or 2 days ago. And we're going to look at that speech now and see the far-right fascist that our dear leader Keir Starmer has become.
These rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. These rules become...
Now, well, remember, he's saying that the thing he went off that speech with, the thing he signed off that part of this video with, was that we need to reduce immigration. Now, that's simply not enough. Everyone should know by this point, that's simply not enough. We need more people leaving than are coming here. We need net emigration, okay? It's not enough to reform, try to get away with the whole playing off the net zero thing, right? The net zero immigration. Not enough. Not enough. Not enough whatsoever. It's not enough simply to reduce it at this point. The Boris wave needs to be reversed. It is that simple. It is that simple. The bare minimum, the Boris wave needs to be reversed because this is not something the British people ever asked for. Okay? This has been inflicted upon us. I was talking to myself about this, trying to work through it myself. I'm thinking at least from the time the Conservatives got in 2010, when they marked themselves on at least reducing immigration to I believe it was pre-1997 levels. Okay, so I believe immigration levels of yearly immigration from other places around the world have been creeping up steadily year on year under the Labour government at that time. And they marketed themselves on reducing it to pre-1997 levels, which are even then, I would say that they were far too high. Even that point was far too high. And Enoch Powell observed this as well. He was saying that even just with the trends that we have, in the very near future, we'll end up with places in the UK that are no longer British, in the sense that British people either don't live there or they'll be social enclaves of other cultures that are completely alien to ours. And you look at the UK today now, he's completely right. Everything that he said has been completely vindicated. But even then, the Conservatives at the time, they got in on the promise that they were going to reduce it to that level, and it didn't. It skyrocketed. It skyrocketed year on year on year on year, to the point where we ended up with, I believe it was at some points in the high hundreds of thousands every year, people coming in. Net coming in. That's also taking into account people that were leaving. So in many years, we actually had more than 1 million people come here, but we also had hundreds of thousands of people leaving every year. And typically, due to the socialist policies that we've increasingly employed in this country, the people that are leaving are the big job creators, big companies that don't want to do business in the UK anymore. And what are we importing? I'm sorry, the establishment, the political establishment, is importing a foreign slave class, because then it drives down wages, it drives down prosperity, it makes us all worse off. So now Keir Starmer's coming out and saying this, and it's funny to see him getting flack from his own side of the aisle. It's funny to see him getting flack from the left, people like the Greens and stuff like that are saying, how can he say this? It's so racist, it's all this, it's xenophobic, all of the phobic, all of the phobes, all of the isms are coming out in force, and the meltdown of this has been truly a spectacle to watch. The lefty meltdowns online have been truly something to watch. But for Wales, we do really need to be concerned about this, particularly with regards to something which is very, very concerning for us in particular. And this is something I've been covering the last episode, not the one before the one I just recorded, was the Plaid Cymru policies regarding this. So I wanted to share this with you. There was two things I wanted to share with you, because Plaid have been one of the people, one of the parties, again, that have completely doubled down on this and have criticised even Welsh Labour, the Welsh Labour government, for being too stringent on just illegal immigration. Plaid claim... Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just worried what that noise... I'm just wondering what that noise is a moment. Un momento. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just had to go and shut the window because there's a gentleman out there in his garden with a very loud gardening instrument that was being very, very distracting. But this now is the leader of Plaid Cymru. Like I said, Mr... Well, how do I pronounce his name again? Oh, yeah. Rhun Up Yorweth. Okay, so he's the leader for Plaid Cymru. And here he is speaking, I believe, at the Welsh Senedd. He backs the £55 million Nation of Sanctuary enthusiastically, slams Keir Starmer, now right-wing fascist, for using divisive language and quote-unquote dog whistles on immigration. And Doge Wales, the page where I'm getting this one, says, whatever you think of Labour, Plaid are worse. So I'm going to play this for you now, ladies and gentlemen. This is why, as I'm saying, Plaid are possibly the most dangerous thing that awaits Wales in its future if it is allowed to continue to gain momentum and has a shot at getting into the Welsh Senedd. We should be very, very concerned about this.
Now, her party leader, the Prime Minister, wants to undermine that for political reasons, even adopting the language of division. And I ask her to distance herself from that language of division that has been repeated so comfortably today by the leader of the Conservatives. But what is her plan now to ensure those reliant on the care sector in Wales aren't punished by her party's latest dog whistle act?
Oh, videos gone to buffer.
Aren't punished by her party's latest dog whistle act.
Oh, well, never mind. There we go. You got the gist of it. You got the gist of it. So, point being, this is where he calls it a dog whistle. So it just buffered now, ladies and gentlemen. The last part is said. He says, let me see if I can get the subtitles to load properly. So he says, you're reliant on the care sector in Wales aren't punished by her party's latest dog whistle action. So that's where he says dog whistle. Okay, where that point was buffering at the end. So, do you know what I'm reminded of whenever I see things like this? I'm reminded of the iconic clip of Randy Orton and Triple H in WWE Randy Orton giving his one of the most recent promos to Triple H, where he's saying, when you face me at WrestleMania, can you please do me a tremendous favor and retrieve your balls from Stephanie's purse? That's exactly how I feel when I see this man speak. In my humble opinion, I'm just seeing language that's just so emasculated from a supposed Welsh nationalist, going about language of division. I'm sorry, mate, if you're a Welsh nationalist, your entire party is built on language of division. You're literally talking about dividing us from our sister nations. You're literally talking about dividing us from England, from the establishment in Westminster, we're all a part of, and it's the same way, again, any nationalist government kind of speaks. They all speak from, this nationalist framework of wanting to do the best for the country, right? That's seemingly. But there's a reason I call these people globalists in nationalist clothing. It's because, as we talked about before, they want to take us straight into the arms of the EU. So no nationalist really, in theory, would want to do that. It's the reason why a lot of the prominent nationalist people out in America at the moment, and I don't necessarily mean nationalist as in, in a lot of cases, for most people, you could very clearly or often interchange nationalist and conservative out in America, okay? But a lot of people who are more on the right side of politics, the conservative, small government, wanting to foster business, those kinds of things, speaking in ways like they want to get out of things like NATO and distance themselves further from globalist bureaucratic institutions like the EU, who are trying to flood all of the European countries with third world migrants. So the fact of the matter is that Plaid want to isolate us from Westminster, isolate us from our sister nations, as I said, Ireland, England, and Scotland, but then take us straight into the arms of the EU, into the single market. That's not what, at least in my opinion, a nationalist government would want to do. Because then all of our systems are governed by the EU. All of our trade agreements, all of, the migration pact, but obviously they want the nation sanctuary. They want these imported votes. They want the imported votes of third worlders. They only want the imported votes of third worlders and gullible Welsh people that will go along and give in to them because they hate the Conservatives for every fibre of their being for historic injustices like Maggie Thatcher and all of these things, right? They're vengeful with regards to them. They don't like that in some ways they're governed by Westminster. But if you listen to my conversation with Paul Ashton, in many other ways, we're still governed by Westminster. And they want, quote unquote, like sovereignty and independence, but then go to Ursula von der Leyen and bow down as if she's the golden calf, being like, please accept us. We apologize for our white guilt and all these things. Honestly, is this the best nationalism that Wales has to offer? It can't be, surely. It can't be. That's why, as I said, whatever you think of Labour, this is me saying it as somebody who does have more nationalist political leanings in Wales. Whatever you think of Labour, Plaid are worse. You also have Plaid Cymru politician, Sinead Griffith, says focusing on the numbers of people coming into our country is the wrong approach, quote unquote, and criticises Labour and Conservative governments for failing to process enough immigration applications. So exactly the same logic that was trying to be used in the border bill out in America. So when the border bill was introduced in America towards the tail end of Joe Biden's presidency, that they tried to weaponize as a way that Donald Trump doesn't care about border security. They're not trying to shut down the border. They just want to use it as a political issue. Well, this is exactly what it would have done. That border bill, one of the things it would have done is it would have given approval authority for these applications to border guards, I believe, or not to judges. Or at the very least, it would have created a lot more judges. It simply would have processed a lot more of these applications. So they don't actually want to deal with they tried to pass it under this border security bill. What they tried to do was they tried to do exactly what I talked about recently with Rob Cogenvan, where the Democrat establishment was caught out doing something illegal. Okay, it was obvious that they were doing something illegal. They left the border open. Millions of illegals would come across every single year, 15,000 every single day. Now, Rob Cogenvan, me and him talked about the police in Guernsey were using an illegal filter for complaints. And they were caught using it. They were told that it was illegal and they said that they wouldn't do it. Okay, so Americans, the Democrats in America said that they'd secure the border. The police in Guernsey said that they'd stop using this illegal filter to filter complaints so that they can get rid of them, okay, as part of this police corruption. Well, what then the police in Guernsey later did, 8 days later, what they did was they simply made that filter legal. So what did the Democrats do under the guise of the border security bill? All they tried to do was make pretty much every single person who was rushing across the border illegally a legal immigrant. That's basically what they tried to do, for lack of more in-depth explanation. But this is exactly what Plaid want. They just want they don't want the conversation around immigration because they don't care about Wales. They only care about, as all politicians do, political power. And to do that, they're more than willing to sacrifice the country and its people to foreign culture and foreign people and globalist tyranny, just so they can maintain their seat at their lovely dinner parties.
To sort of put a cap,
even though they're completely irrelevant on the wider stage anyway.
Arbitrary figure isn't a game I want to play. So I think playing a numbers game is the wrong approach. And again, it plays into this simplistic ideological approach rather than looking at it in a way that sort of understands, you know, what needs to happen to get it right, because we've had successive Conservative and Labour governments not introducing an effective and sustainable way of dealing with and processing applications.
Now, on the scale of Westminster, he's right when he says we've had consecutive Labour and Conservative governments. That's absolutely true. There's a reason why we call them the uniparty and two cheeks of the same arse, so to speak, or two sides of the same coin. Have not had that in Wales. However, have not had that in Wales. The Labour government has been in power ever since I've been alive, ever since I first came into the world. They've been in power now for a quarter of a century, okay, in Wales. So there's a reason people are very dissatisfied with Labour, in particular in Wales, because they've had 25 years to turn this country around and they've made it worse at every single turn because of the very same ideological route that Plaid want to go down. The net zero stuff, the immigration stuff. All of the stuff that systematically ruined this country by driving wages down, by decreasing prosperity, by making the country unattractive to do business in, by selling out its culture. Okay, selling out its culture. But yeah, they just want more of it. They just want more of it. It's the wrong conversation. Come on, peeps, it's the wrong conversation. I personally just think that, you know, it would be nice to keep Wales Welsh. It would be nice to keep Wales Welsh, as I'll show you now. Because Plaid Cymru have no intention of doing this. I'm going to give you Plaid Cymru's take on what traditional Welsh dress is, seemingly. Okay? So this is an actual advert or an actual resource that Plaid Cymru posted. I believe it was a year ago. I believe it was in June last year. They posted this. But for those of you who don't know, for those of you who may not be aware, right, of the culture of Wales, so what you tend to find is that in the countries of the United Kingdom, or in the countries of Great Britain, every country within it has a distinct culture. They all have their own language. They all have, obviously, their own ethnicity, their own people, all have their own cultural customs. The one thing we do have is a commonality with regards to religion. A lot of the, obviously, from pagan origins to a lot of it. It was a lot of the start. And then, you know, more so to a Christian heritage around the turn of about 2,000 years ago, in when the years of our Lord started. But here's an example. I'm just trying to find a good one. This one will do. This one will do. Of what traditional Welsh dress looks like. If you've never been to Wales, if you've never seen anything to do with Wales, one of the things I love online is watching people react to the Welsh national anthem when it's sung inside rugby stadiums. It's watching people like Americans react to it and see their minds blown away by it. I'll be the first to say we have the best best national anthem in the world. There's a reason why Wales is known for its song. You know, Wales is known for song. So I'm just going to make that a little bit. Let me just check something. Right, okay. So again, if you're not acquainted with Welsh culture, ladies and gentlemen, this is an example of what traditional, which we wear around St. David's Day, Welsh dress looks like. Okay, very beautiful. Very beautiful, in my opinion. You have the traditional Welsh hats. You have the the young girls down here, this traditional Welsh dress, right? This is where it is. You often see these being worn around St. David's Day, which is the 1st of March. The daffodils, common Welsh emblem. You know, we have we have 3 feathers. We have the dragon on our flag. We have the daffodils and leeks and stuff like that. So this is what you will see around St. David's Day. This is very traditional Welsh attire, you know. Not stuff that we wear every day, okay? Not stuff that we wear every single day, but like the Scottish kilt, you know, like those kinds of things. You know, people don't wear them every day, but it's an emblem of the society. It's an emblem of the country, right? This, in contrast, is what Plaid Cymru seem to think Welsh attire is. So this is Welsh. Wales, it's us. The Party of Wales, Plaid Cymru, sanctioned this, I believe, back in June last year. And I don't think it's controversial to say, ladies and gentlemen, that there is nothing, I repeat, nothing Welsh about this. There is nothing Welsh about this except the language in this part of the image here, the Ni yw Cymru. Wales, it's us. I'm sorry, no it isn't. This is Wales. This is a part of Welsh culture that we should be taking pride in, we should be celebrating. Not this. This is alien. This is not of us, and it never will be. Cannot be allowed to be. Cannot be allowed to be. It will be the undoing of us as a people. It'll be one of the undoings of us as a people if we tolerate this kind of stuff. But again, this is a Welsh nationalist party, quote unquote, posting this. Is it not clear yet that they are anything but nationalists? They are globalists in nationalists' clothing. So do not be fooled. Do not be fooled, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever you think of Labour, Plaid will be worse. And there's very bad things to think of Labour, such as this at the moment. So you'll be aware at the moment that in the UK, in Westminster, there's been a pushing for assisted suicide legislation to be pushed through. And there's a guy by the name of Dan Hitchens. He's a senior editor at First Things magazine. And he posted this the other day. And it was his list at the time that he thought was a complete list of safeguards rejected and accepted by Kim Leadbeater and her allies. Kim Leadbeater, somebody who's the most predominant voice pushing this through Parliament at the moment. And at the moment, with the current state of the political establishment that we have, if you tuned in to the previous episode, you would have seen that a guy recently got thrown out of a bank in Australia very forcefully by police just because he wanted to take out his own money. And we've seen that happen with Enoch Burke. We've seen that happen with so many people. And that's just one example of government tyranny that's going on right now. But when a government starts saying that it's going to start offing its citizens under the guise of healthcare, you know there's something seriously bad going on. You know there's something very, very seriously bad going on. And that's what's going on right now with this bill that's trying to push its way through Parliament at the moment. I'm going to read you some of the safeguards that were voted down now. And surely you have to read some of these and question, why are these being voted down? Why are these safeguards not being put in place and people are actively trying to vote them down? So we have this one, for example. It won't be shown up on screen, but listen now. So we have, for example, Maskell 281. I believe this Maskell refers to the person that posed this, and maybe it is a count 281 or something. Must have a meeting with a palliative care specialist. Voted down 15-8. A 6-month diagnosis, presumably of terminal illness, must have reasonable certainty. That one was also voted down 15-8. So presumably, this service, assisted dying, suicide, will be offered even if they have a good chance of living beyond 6 months under that instance. So this is some of them. There's another one here. Doctors must not bring up assisted suicide to under 18s. That one was voted down 13-8. So a safeguard that would have stopped doctors discussing assisted suicide with under 18s was voted down 13-8. What world is that okay? A lot of the people that would be for assisted suicide, in theory, under this illusion that it would be solely used just to help people in the dying, quote unquote, people in the dying stages of life, in the terminal, you know, when they're suffering, when you having to watch them suffer to the very end of their time, you know, it might be hours or days, whatever it might be, right? And in theory, you just want their pain to end. And you wish they had that option. And you wish it was solely used just for that it was just to ease pain. I understand that. Nobody likes to see their relatives suffer. Nobody likes to see anybody suffer. Okay? But you have to be very careful with giving that power to the government. Especially the type of government that we have at the moment. Whereby they're making it perfectly clear. They don't just intend to talk about this with people that want it, or with people that are in the dying stages of life that just want a cure, quote unquote cure, you know, a way to end the suffering. They want to talk about it just with under 18s, potentially under 18s just going through natural developmental phases, going through natural decrements in mental health, like a lot of us did when we were growing up, especially with the level of psychological propaganda that we were injected with all through school that made us scared of everything. Not scared of the right things, mind you. We were never told to be scared of government overreach, government tyranny, you know, the communists. We were never told to be scared of the communists. Makes you wonder why. It's a bit like the African, the African Regional Council, whatever it is at the moment, the ARC out in Africa, saying that, no, there is no genocide going on in Africa against the Boers, despite the fact that they're doing that so that they continue doing the genocide against the Boers. But here's another one, for example. Where was it? I want to see if I can find. Here we go. So as I said, people want to think that people who want it will be offered it. It says here, doctors must ask why applicant wants assisted suicide. Voted down 15-7. Applicant must be told the side effects of lethal drugs. Voted down 13-9. Would be nice to know that sometimes the drugs can go wrong and you could end up having a horrendously painful death where you suffocate to death, not being able to breathe but being fully conscious at the time, because obviously you've had the muscle relaxers. Typically it's like a lethal injection, for example. One of the final injection, I believe, is the one that stops your heart. One of the ones that comes before that is a muscle relaxer. So if something goes wrong with that one, or if something goes wrong with the injection that's meant to stop your heart, you slowly suffocate to death, not being able to move. It's like having sleep paralysis, but you are slowly suffocating to death. It's like drowning to death in air, as far as I know. It's awful. It's awful. Just to die like that is just imagine it. But here you go. You have another one, for example. I'm trying to find the one where. Here we go. This is the one I was looking for. Sorry, guys. Doctors must not bring up assisted suicide unless patient says they want it. Would be a nice safeguard. Don't bring it up unless they say that they want it. Nope, voted down 13-8. Doctors must not bring up assisted suicide unless patient mentions the subject. Another good one. Nope, voted down. Voted down 13-8. Capacity must be beyond reasonable doubt. Nope, voted down 15-8. So all of these safeguards would have been put in place. They were voted down. But do you want to know what was things were approved without vote? Doctors must ensure access to interpreters. So this shows you where the priorities. That shows you where the priorities of the people trying to put this system in place that is literally playing with people's lives under the guise of healthcare. That they want to bring it up to under 18s. They want to bring it up even when patients don't ask for it or don't mention it. They want to bring it up even if the capacity isn't there. They want to bring it up to people that have a good chance maybe of living beyond a certain time period that the doctors initially thought they might live beyond. So they want to shoot down all of these safeguards where it would be good to try and preserve life. But then they pass without even so much as a vote things like interpreters. Now, got to make sure foreigners can understand. Got to make sure we cater to foreigners. Honestly. Even this one here, doctors must have completed medical training. voted down 13-9. Doctors must have training on capacity and coercion. That one was agreed without vote. Doctors must base assessment on provided evidence. Voted down 13-8. I'll just link this post down below, guys. You can read this. This is a state-sanctioned murder bill. There's no other way to talk about it. This is a state-sanctioned murder bill, and that is it. That is it. Okay? There is nothing in here that's meant to do all of the things that people want euthanasia to do, where they have a dying grandmother who's suffering in a bed with terminal illness. They're coughing every minute of every day. There's no quality of life. They've barely got anything to hang on to. And you're just like, no, can we just end her suffering, please? Well, no, they want to use it to come after you, political dissidents, and people who really don't need it. People who should be glorifying life and be thankful for this life that they have been able to have so far. But no, the establishment wants to kill you. Make no mistake about it. It's getting to the point now where the NHS has become such a golden calf for some people that they're now worshipping it, not only sacrificing their children to it via these liberal abortion policies that we have, but also now increasingly making the argument that, no, we need to save money. So you know what we can do? We can get people to kill themselves. You don't just sacrifice your children to Baal of the NHS. You don't just sacrifice your children to the NHS, to the pagan god of the NHS. No, you sacrifice now yourself. So that, Tom, Dick, and Abdul can move in. Or as we should say, Mohammed, Ahmed, and Abdul can move in. So yeah, that's where we are as a country. And you tell me how this is a country that is destined to prosper and survive beyond the next 20 years. Honestly. Going back to the migration trends, though, why we should be cautious of people like Plaid who want to expand the ability for people to enter the country illegally, is that a large parts of Welsh cities have already been overtaken. So I mentioned before, I have a personal story of somebody that was very nearly had a horrendous experience in Swansea, where a taxi that she got into, the foreign-born driver, instead of taking her to the destination that she wanted to go, took her to a destination where 2 or 3 other males got in a taxi and then proceeded to try and assault her. Wales cities are attracting a large share of these internal and international migration. For example, this document here, it's called, of all things, Attracting Talent: Spatial Patterns and Composition of Migration in Wales by the Welsh Assembly Government. And I'm going to flash this up on screen for you. I'm going to flash this up on screen for you from the document, because I want you to look at this term that they use, because this is a term that they try to push through at every single turn to hide what is really going on. This term here, which if you're looking online, on the screen, you see this: irregular migrants. And then they have to put this in brackets in the hope that either you'll miss it or you'll overlook it. They want to call them irregular because it allows them to try and skirt around the fact that these people have got here by breaking the law. They're criminals by definition, and therefore they can make a better case that these people should not be removed because they are banking on their vote. They are banking on their vote. When a government is banking on the votes of foreigners, you have to acknowledge that they're not working in your best interests anymore as a native of the land. Okay, you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that this is now basically a colonization effort, because the people coming over are going to be voting in their best interests, and the government are going to be going to their best interests. So we basically have a foreign government. We're basically already here. We need to wake up. We need to wake up. But the one thing which I thought was really interesting about this is they mentioned a lot of the places these people are moving to were in the cities, and as a result then you see crime skyrocketing in the cities. Obviously, just a result as well of more people in the cities is going to be more crime, because odds are if you're bringing in more people, regardless of where you're bringing them from, you're going to be bringing in more people who are likely to be criminals. If you have more people in a space versus less people, you're probably, for the most part, going to have more crime, all things being equal, just because there's more people. Okay, so there is that. But for example, here we have in Cardiff, this is where the greatest migration has been seen, where over 15,000 individuals have moved into the area, almost double seen that in Swansea. I'm not sure at what time frame this is over. But yeah, on the scale of us, we're a relatively small country with not a massive population. Wales's population is only around 3 million, 3.1 million. So changes like this, even small changes, affect things massively. It doesn't take much in terms of migration to overrun several towns in Wales. You know, several towns have, you know, less than 1,000 people, between 1 and 10,000 people, say. So although a big city, you might not notice as much. Imagine like these people, all of these people moving to somewhere like mine, it would be unrecognizable. It would be completely unrecognizable. So one important thing to note, though, is it says here in the footnotes or in the margin of this document, rural Wales are beginning to attract an increasing number of overseas migrants. Sorry, I thought it actually said something different. Where was it? It was a different thing that I was going to read. Unless I misread it. Apologies, I might have misread it. But not only then is it confined to the biggest thing here, it says rural areas of Wales. Not only is it confined to the cities, it's now starting, this is exactly what I said, where even if it's a problem where it's up in London, because we're joined by land, it only takes, you know, people to start moving out of London and going into more rural areas that what's inevitably going to happen. It's going to start spreading everywhere. This is now starting to spread like a disease, like a cancer. I don't care, you know, who that offends or whatever. But this is exactly how it is. Now, because the cities are becoming so unlivable for a lot of people, they're now starting to move out into rural areas like mine. And we don't want this. Seeing what's going on in the cities is horrifying. And now you need to wake up, young Welshman, because it's coming for you. It's coming for you in your nice, quiet rural town. In many ways, it likely already has. And we need to start exploring some serious alternatives. But one of what's also interesting is that many people who live in cities their entire lives, native to the country, for example, in Bristol. I know people, for example, that are moving out of big cities like Bristol precisely because of the problems due with increasing crime and things like that. They're moving to quieter areas where there's less crime and there's less people, there's less influx of people. Sooner or later, unless we do something about it, these lovely rural areas are going to be resembling those cities more and more and more. So we do have to be very, very careful. It says here, moreover, it is the more rural areas of Wales that have seen the greatest net inflows of individuals from elsewhere in the UK, furthering the trend of deurbanisation seen in recent years. Because people don't want to live in the cities anymore. People don't want to live in the cities because they're crime-ridden, socialist, disgusting hellholes that are increasingly being occupied by people that have nothing in common with us. And that's why people are moving away. Do you want to know who called it? Somebody called this. Somebody called all of this a long time ago. And this is where I'm going to leave you for today, ladies and gentlemen. This is just a quick episode off the back of the one I just recorded. And I wanted to give this to you because there was a certain gentleman who was ahead of his time that, for lack of a better term, called it, the kids may say. And his name is Enoch Powell. Enoch Powell, the older British politician, Englishman, and was vilified as, you know, a disgusting racist and all of these other labels that were being used at the time to further these agendas regarding, you know, mass migration and all of these things. But Enoch Powell had the simple power of observation, a very simple power of observation, to understand that even under the levels of migration that they had at the time, this was back in 1969, this video is from, even back then, unless something was done, that in the very near future, we would see a very divided society. And we would see people that had really nothing in common with us taking over certain parts of the country and turning it into things that didn't resemble anything of our own, resembled things that they had back home. And you only have to look at any big city where you see foreign road signs, where you see foreign enclaves, quite literally, foreign enclaves, foreign communities. You know, the Bangladeshi community, the Pakistani community, whatever community. It can be anything. It can even be ones from like Eastern Europe and really anything like that. When the population gets large enough, there's no need to integrate anymore. There's no need to integrate at all. So you end up with competing tribes, basically. We've now imported hostile tribes, in many instances, just want to do us harm. But there was somebody that saw it, and you got to wonder the situation we would have been in if maybe he would have been listened to a lot more instead of being vilified and called everything under the sun when he was just trying to warn us, and he was completely right. Mr. Enoch Powell, ladies and gentlemen.
Unless something drastic is done, there will be a coloured majority in the foreseeable future over large areas, and there will be the whip hand over the white man held by the immigrant. This is foreseeable. This is foreseeable in a town where already a tenth and eighth is in immigrant occupation, where a quarter of the births are immigrant, where the area, naturally, it's inevitable, occupied by the immigrants is extending, where the proportion of immigrants in various employments is constantly increasing. This point is bound to come where the majority in those occupations, in those areas, and they will be large areas, tips the other way. Unless...
Now, the biggest thing is all people have to combat that is emotional appeal and spurging. That's all people have, because you cannot compete with that from a logical perspective, because everything he said has come true. Everything he said has come true. There's a reason why he said he made sure that his family was, even back then, he said, no, I'm making sure my family gets out of the UK because I see what's coming. And the only thing is the reason why he could say that so confidently, and he was actually, one of the things he got called was like, when people asked him, are you a racist? He was like, I'm going to clarify something, the difference between what he called racist and racialist. Be like, if you believe that I believe that we, like, certain races, people of different skin colors are just inherently better than other people, then no, I don't believe that. That's what he called a racialist. Now, if you mean by racist that by more of these people coming here, that they're going to set up their own social enclaves, they're not going to integrate, and they will be greater powers handed to them over the ethnic majority, and that I see this and their race is coinciding with that, they just happen to be a different color, then yeah, I suppose I am. But if it's just because you believe that I'm better than anybody else simply because of my skin color, no, I don't believe that whatsoever. And everything has come true. Every single thing has come true. Like I said, we're in a bank where a foreigner can tell you what you're allowed to use your money for and what you're not allowed to use your money for, that you're not allowed to withdraw it and everything like this, that a foreigner can arrest you. A foreigner can arrest you, you know, in your own homeland and take away your freedom. All the while, they can go and, you know, rape your daughters and, you know, traffic your daughters, and the establishment will actively help them with the grooming gangs and stuff like that, right? When he mentions, you need to go back and read, if you haven't done so already, crack open a Bible and read Deuteronomy chapter 28. It lays this exact thing out. It lays this exact thing out. It lays out this exact system of what will happen. I read that at the end of the episode two episodes ago, with this one included. Go and listen to it. Go and either listen to me read it for you, or go and read Deuteronomy chapter 28. Okay? It lays out literally everything, and then provides us pretty much with the solution, what we need to start taking more seriously. Anyway, just remember, guys, good times are going to be coming in the future. Make no mistake about it. We're in a fight right now. We're in a war. I think when people say that this is greater, potentially, this is a greater civilizational threat to us than either of the two world wars, especially with the state that we're in right now, they're completely right. And we need to be ready. We need to be ready, because make no mistake, the devil is not going down without a fight. The devil is not going down without a fight. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, as always, and listening, ladies and gentlemen. I will catch up with you very soon. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, night, wherever you are, as we would say. Bore da, prynhawn da, noswaith da, nos da, wherever you are. And yeah, I'll catch up with you again very soon. Hwyl fawr, and Godspeed.